there's a connection between front and back jaw position and front and back head position. And this is the connection. When the jaw is pulled back, the lower jaw is pulled back, and the teeth are meshed, it tends to bring the head forward. And when the lower jaw is allowed to hang and drop forward, the whole head and neck come backward. So.
That's one of the exercises that we do on the floor.
Right, and there's a difference between doing it on the floor and doing it sitting.
I've never done it sitting.
And there's an addition to be done. So I'll show it to you, and I'll describe it to you, and then we'll practice it.
Okay.
The action is to incorporate a little bit of bite. Okay, now I'm going to narrate the whole thing for you, but if you can hold on with your fingers, you feel your hands hanging off your lower jaw, you'll feel how those are opposing. So that's the open and close movement. Then there's the front to back movement, which we just talked about. And then there's a side to side movement. Now here's the quaint relationship between the lower jaw, the mandible, and head position. And it's like this. The jaw, the mandible, is like a pendulum. If you tilt the head, it should hang down into gravity, which means that if you tilt your head left, the mandible drifts left.
Okay.
Well, not okay. You were tipping right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So when your head tips left, your mandible goes left.
Yeah.
Now you're moving your mandible right at this moment. It's the opposite to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite of this. That's it.
Over here, that's the mandible?
That's the mandible. The lower jaw is the mandible. And when you tip your head to the right, your mandible drops right.
Yes,
if your mandible is free. But if it doesn't drop, that's the sign that you've got some clenching going on.
Well,
See, but yeah, that's it.
It's dropping a bit.
Yeah. And actually, you can do the movement as a free hanging movement without hands, as you've just now been doing. It's just subtler. And being subtler, it's more demanding. So what we do instead of that, first we'll start with the simpler version.
Okay.
Which is, first we bite, and while biting, we tip the head to one side and carry the mandible toward that same side, and then tip the head the other side and carry the mandible toward that side. That's it. Now you feel how that communicates into the neck, because you're pulling down on your mandible and biting up. So do you feel that pulling?
Equalizing this with the bite up, the pulling up, equalizing? Or you let the arms hang?
Well, I use that.
Okay.
What you do is you equalize. Yeah, you match and oppose with your hands. And it doesn't have to be a hard pull, just enough that there's constancy. And avoid rocking your whole trunk at this point. We're just teaching you neck and head. That's it. So now you'll be feeling that in the muscles of biting, in the neck, in the back of the neck.
In the place in my neck that hurts on this side.
Well, so this is the perfect move then. And of course, you smooth out the movement with practice. You're going to feel catches and hitches in this. And your goal is to smooth out the movement so you feel the teeth drifting sideways in a grinding movement. So this is a way of getting into the neck in a rather sneaky, obscure way. Okay, now here's the next part. Now that you know that, we start now with pulling the mandible back as we bite. And then as we tip side to side, we let the mandible come a little further forward each time. So the mandible, it's a zigzaggy movement.
Oh.
The mandible starts all the way pulled back, and with successive rocks side to side, the mandible comes further and further forward.
When I pull my mandible back, it feels really tight in here.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the muscles that's involved.
Just in front of the ear there.
Yeah.
I've noticed a tightness there lately that probably needs to be worked with.
I'm going to send you a link to a recent write-up on this movement, which is going to restate what I'm saying here. When the mandible comes forward to its more natural, free hanging position, the pull changes from being toward the back of the neck and base of the skull forward toward the facial bones. When the mandible is in its free hanging position, there's a draw upon the facial bones that causes them to feel like they're separating along their vertical length. It's producing a softer face. Okay. Just as a product of the mandible shifting position from a habitual resting state, which isn't really resting, jamming the jaw back and clenching the teeth,
right.
And you've had a bunch of dental work.
And the tongue way up behind the teeth.
Yeah, and and it closes the breathing passage. This is where, apparently, this is what I've discovered, this is where snoring comes from and where sleep apnea comes from. The jaw being held back and up in that kind of clenched position. So what we'll be doing here is resetting the resting condition of the mandible. And so far, in this earlier stage of investigation, it appears to me that the healthy resting position of the jaws is with the incisors touching or floating next to each other. Not the molars.
These guys.
Yeah, the incisors are the very front teeth.
Right.
And when the jaw's in its free condition, there's space between the molars, and those incisors are right next to each other. They may not be touching, but that's the relative position. They're right matched up above and below.
Okay, so
and when that's allowed to
can we go through it again?
Yeah.
'Cause I haven't.
So this time you do it and I'll speak.
Okay.
So you secure your fingertips over your teeth there. You gently bite enough to feel the bite. And pull the mandible back. And you're going to be jamming it into your TMJs. In that position, you start to slow what you're doing. Yes, you're tipping your head a little to the right and let the jaw drift to the right. And then slowly tip the head a little to the left. Feel the jaw, lower mandible, the mandible drift to the left. And alternate that until you get a little better at it in that position. Doesn't have to be much of a movement. And feel where you feel it in your neck, the base of the head and back. Gradually, with each tip, let the mandible come forward a little bit. Pause and let go of whatever you can in your neck. And then switch and let go of whatever you can in your neck. And alternate with the mandible coming further and further forward till you reach some limit. And let your nose come down as you do this, because that's going to be the change of head position. As your mandible comes down and forward, Okay. Now here's how we polish this one off.
Now gonna close.
Yeah, now you may close. I'm not a dentist. It's like this now. Here's how you do the polishing. We do this rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Where, let's say, 1 is chin protruding, and 2 is chin pulled back so the mandible seats into the temporal mandibular joints. So you go forward, back, forward, pause and feel, relax into that, and then back, forward, back, hold that and feel and relax into that. Once you know the positions, you set a rhythm, so it goes like this. Forward, back, forward, pause.
It's quite hard. Like you're really pulling it back in.
Well, it's not hard for me.
Okay.
I'm just pretty free in the movement, I guess.
So, can you see me?
Yeah. Forward, back, forward, pause. Back, forward, back. Pause. And now you can do diamond penetration with that rhythm. These are just quick returns into each position.
All right.
And then you can do 3s instead of 2s. Forward, back, forward, back, forward. Back, forward, back, forward, back. 1, 2, 3. Forward, back, forward, back, forward. 1, 2, 3. Back, forward, back, forward, back. 1, 2, 3. And then you adjust the speed. Slower and slower.
And then you end up with your jaw in a place.
You end up with free jaw. Now it can float freely.
It's feeling like it's feeling like it's far forward, and it's feeling different here.
Exactly. And with further practice, you feel the facial bones, and even with me, I feel my occipital bone change also, and my whole neck curvature, as I let the jaw come forward, my neck curvature lengthened and flattened, and more breathing room occurs in the throat.
It's cool.
Yeah, and it has a tremendous lot of effects. It affects apparently the place where the brain stem goes into the brain through the hole at the base of the skull. It goes from the uppermost neck vertebrae into the brain cavity. When the jaw is pulled back, it creates a compression at that location, the atlas-occipital junction. And when you let go of this, that area decompresses. It opens up. So it has an awful lot of physiological effects. You'll see it when you read the write-up. I've got a little tweaking to do on it, but it's good enough to use at this point. And this is a way of getting at your neck. Now, the other sneaky part of this is you can do it with your neck, with your head turned. You see? So we're just starting it off in the straightforward position. You get everything you can out of that, and then begin by doing the gentle bite and turn to find any interesting position.
That actually, when I was doing the neck work a couple of days ago, I did some jaw with it just to experiment, and found I could get more sensation. But then it all hurt the next day.
Yeah, you take a break if you get sore. But this is apparently a very potent combination, the turn movement and the jaw swiveling movement. Okay. And, of course, in this movement, we're doing every possible movement of the jaws, forward, back, side to side, and open and close. We're just doing it in an upright position, and we're involving the neck and base of the head in a certain way. So it's a very high integration move.
What do you think would happen when you're on your back thing? It's going to fall right back again, right back in your head.
So, yeah, it does. That's right. Yeah. That's where gravity takes it. And furthermore, if you take a walk, and as you're walking, you practice nodding your head, you sense whether your jaw freely hangs forward and back as you tip your head. Because gravity will draw your jaw.
Right.
It's not something you have to do even. It's something you let happen. When you can do that, when you can let it happen without any special fuss, you'll have let your jaws go. If you have to make a special effort to let go, well, then you're just teaching yourself still to let go.
Okay.
So this one ought to be very interesting into getting into neck stuff that isn't accessible any other way.
Okay.
Let's see how this one serves you.